I call Derek Ball.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise on behalf of New Zealand First to make some comments on the budget. I'll be concentrating my comments on the changes to the social services area. And the first thing that I'd like to do, sir, is to ask a question. And that question is of the budget. Has the government addressed the very worst levels of child poverty in New Zealand with its budget announcement last Thursday? The answer is, unsurprisingly, a definitive no. After persistently ignoring 40 years of research on the topic, expert advisory group recommendations largely ignored, why all of a sudden a U-turn? The government has been in power for 7 years, and for 7 years they have either denied it, denied the scale of the problem. We have the Prime Minister that usually shrugs most things off, including the problem of child poverty. But worst of all, sir, those 7 years, they have failed to address it. So why the U-turn? Probably because of the public pressure and the post-election promises in face of widespread public protestation. But we are already witnessing the government reverting to the ideological blind spot on child poverty. Just 2 days ago, sir, so we had a budget preaching about the focus on child poverty and the needy on Thursday, and just 2 days ago we have Mr English commenting about the anti-poverty figures. So the article in the Herald has a title, "English hits back at anti-poverty figures." It goes on to say, sir, that Professor Jonathan Boston refuted the Minister's claims, saying Minister English doesn't understand how poverty measures are calculated. And Mr English's response to that, sir, is that in an interview on Q&A, is that campaigners like Professor Boston and the Children's Commissioner used an unrealistic set of measures to quantify poverty in New Zealand. The funny thing is, sir, is that during Mr English's budget speech, he said this, and I quote, "2/3 of children in more severe hardship have a parent on a benefit, and 9 out of 10 of those are sole parents." So where did he get that measure of severe hardship from? Well, in order to get this to this conclusion, he would have to be using the very calculation of poverty used by Dr. Jonathan Boston, the same man he criticised on national TV for the way in which he calculated it. So I challenged the Minister to prove where he got those figures from and by which method, because he cannot continue to contradict himself and say that Professor Boston has an unrealistic set of measures and yet use those exact same measures in his speech. So there's a blatant attempt to diminish expert opinion. The public can now quite clearly see that the Minister of Finance has no idea about how poverty measures are calculated, a poor start to the government's acknowledgement of the problem, far less than a step in the right direction. We know the measures the government announced on Thursday will not lift those children out of poverty. The Children's Commissioner, someone else that the government does not listen to, himself saying it won't bring families out of poverty, and he is calling for a comprehensive plan. So all pre-budget, all of the end of last year, there was this promise from the government and from the Minister of Social Development and from the Minister of Finance about a comprehensive plan to tackle child poverty and vulnerable children. And what we got was not even a skeleton of a plan. They didn't even do the map recce yet. So where is the package? Where is the plan? The measures announced in the budget are piecemeal and they are disappointing. Put quite simply, this government is continuing to fund supported poverty. Being a step in the right direction is not enough to warrant a vote of confidence or indeed acceptance for this budget. One can never win a game of cards if they are only given one single card to play with. How are these people in poverty with vulnerable children expected to get out of their way of poverty, to work their way out of poverty, to fight their way out of poverty with just $25 a week? The government has given them that one card to play with, sir. These moves are a token effort to appease the general concern of the New Zealand public at the plight of an unacceptable number of our children. We want to hold on to the country we once proudly advocated for when we travelled around the globe, proud of a land of equal opportunity. But now we are reminded by the national government that times have changed, and we need to focus on quite a long-term savings for the Crown, on cost-cutting, on more efficiency and better investment. How did child poverty end up being about what these children will cost us in the future? Why is it not about the New Zealand vision that every one of these children should have an equal opportunity to contribute to our society? New Zealand First believes in the fundamentals of a social welfare system that provides a robust safety net. No one should fall below this most minimum of levels. No family and no child. It should not be a reward, nor should it be a punishment. It should not be a matter of approval for a budget change. It should be an automatic expectation. Anything less would mean we are all leaving our principles behind for the sake of financial convenience and outright judgment. The government's investment approach stretches it further, sir. Now each person who requires a social service has a dollar sign floating above their head. If their need does not fit within the criteria of the government's targets, then the dollar is extinguished and the individual is left to fend for themselves. If a social agency tries to look after all of its clients' needs, it will run adrift. If a service attempts to exist in the regions where the client numbers are low, it will struggle, falter, and it will disappear. So if you're a young person looking for support in a small provincial town, tough. Your need is not financially sustainable. Where in this do we allow for a community to identify its own needs and provide a response? Will a coupon system for social services mean less supply and lower quality, just as it did with the voucher system for childcare evaluated in Sweden and Australia? We have seen social services retracting, sir. Most recently, we have seen the struggles of our biggest counselling agency, Relationships Aotearoa. And with the release today, and I quote the title, "Government Forces Closure of Relationships Aotearoa." It goes on to say, "Unfortunately, our financial position worsened by government's needless delay means we cannot afford to transition clients we had hoped to transition clients for." Government could have easily reached an agreement with us that was equitable for all concerned. It is fair to say that we feel betrayed. It is likely that our doors will be closed to over 7,000 current clients by the end of the week. But this government would rather spend around $30 million on a flag referendum. Where is the priority shown by this government? 2 months ago, sir, we met with the Salvation Army Youth Education and Employment Unit. They had just shut down branches in Kaikoui, Matamata, Wairoa, Waipukurau and Blenheim. The common theme in all of those are they are all regional. Why did they shut down? They were not financially viable. One would have to ask where this will end. Where is the plan by this government to ensure that the essential safety net that is faltering in our provinces especially remains intact and maintains its integrity? This budget surely did not deliver confidence in that. New Zealand First wants more than just a $2 a day down payment for the 250,000 children living in poverty. We want front-end investment focused on our youth. Simply increasing the benefit is lazy, it lacks focus and lacks realism of the understanding of the real issue, and instead tries to plug a gap over the symptoms. The government has ignored our young people in this budget. The government may not care, but the vast majority of New Zealand cares about the future generations. As Mark Powell, the CEO of The Warehouse, said this weekend, a flourishing society equals flourishing business. May I lastly say this, sir. If we are to maintain that minimum social floor that no one should fall through, we need a heavy focus on our youth. Unemployed youth become unemployed adults who remain on a benefit, who bring children and families into poverty. Acting too late with too little should never be acceptable.